All right, so today in our algebraic problems, we are looking at number problems, and we'll also look at geometric problems. So when solving any number problems, we have these 4 steps. So the first thing is to set a variable. So identify what you're looking for and call it x. Usually we call it x, but again, you can use any letter for your variable. Translate the problem into a algebraic equation. Next, you're going to solve the equation, and then you would have your final statement to answer the question. So let's take a look at our first example. So our first example, if a number is tripled and the result increased by 4, the sum is 64, find the number. So the first thing we will do is set our variable. So we'll say that we're going to say let x equal the number. That's what we're trying to solve for. Find the number. All right, so the number is tripled. So tripled would be 3x. And the result is increased by 4. So it's increasing by 4. And we know the sum is 64. And it's being equal to 64. So there's our mathematical or algebraic equation. Now all we have to do is solve for x using our steps to solve a step 2 equation. This is a step 2 equation. All right, so the first thing we'll do is subtract 4 on both sides. That will leave me with 3x is equal to 60. And then we'll divide by 3, both sides, and that gives me x is equal to 60 divided by 3, which is 20. All right, and then we just have to write down our final sentence. The question is for find the number. We would just say the number is 20. Okay, so this next example, we have 2 numbers. This time we have the larger of 2 numbers is 7 more than 5 times the smaller. So if their sum is 61, what are the numbers? So we're looking for 2 numbers. All right, so just like before, we're going to set our variables. So our smaller number is just going to be called x. So our smaller number, we'll call it x. And then our larger number is going to be 7 more than 5 times the smaller. Right, so 5 times the smaller, so 5x plus 7. All right, so this statement here represents that the larger of the 2 numbers is 7 more than 5 times the smaller. All right, and our smaller number is just x. Now it says that their sum is 61. Sum means we're going to add. So our equation, we're going to take both of these and add them together. So x plus 5x plus 7 is equal to 61. Okay, so here we can collect these 2 like terms. So that gives me 6x plus 7 is equal to 61. And now it looks like a type 2 equation again. We're going to subtract 7 on both sides. That gives me 6x is equal to 54. And then we'll divide by 6 on both sides. And that gives me x is equal to 9. All right, but what does that mean? So you have to go back to the original statements that we set up here. So that means our smaller number is 9 because we said that our smaller number is equal to x. So the 2 numbers, well, let's write it in our statement. So we will say the smaller number is 9. All right, and then to solve for the larger number, we have to substitute this 9 back into this equation. All right, so we would put 5 times 9 plus 7, which gives me 52. Okay, 45 plus 7 to give me 52. So the smaller number is 9, and then we would say the larger number is 52. Okay, so example 3, the sum of 3 consecutive numbers is 78. What are the numbers? So firstly, we will start by setting our variables. So our first number, we're just going to call it x. Then our second number is going to be x plus 1. And then the third number is going to be x plus 2. All right, so, and we know the sum of them. So once we add all three, the sum is 78. So that means x plus the x plus 1 plus the x plus 2 is equal to 78. All right, so now you can collect like terms. Collecting like terms, so we would collect x, x, and x together. So that gives me 3x. And then we have the 1 and the 2 there. So 3x plus 3 is equal to 78. All right, type 2 equation again. So we'll subtract 3. And we end up with 3x is equal to 75. All right, so now we divide by 3, and we get x is equal to 25. All right, so now you have to go back to what does this represent. So that means the first number is 25. The second number is going to be 25 plus 1, which is 26. The third number is going to be 25 plus 2, which is 27. All right, so our statement would be, we can just say the numbers are 25, 26, and 27. Okay, our next example, if 3 is added to a number and the sum multiplied by 2, the result is the same as 9 subtracted from 3 times the number. Find the number. So the first step is set our variable. So we'll just say let x equal the number. And now we'll go ahead and break this down to get our equation. So if 3 is added to a number, okay, 3 is added to a number, so x plus 3, and the sum is multiplied by 2. So the sum is multiplied by 2, so we'll use brackets like that. Next, it says the result is the same as. So the result is the same as, so we're going to use our equal sign. So the result is the same as 9 subtracted from 3 times the number. So 3 times the number, and then 9 is subtracted from it. All right, so we end up with our equation that looks like this. All right, so our first step here, we are going to multiply this 2 to everything inside the bracket. So that will give me 2x plus 6 is equal to 3x minus 9. All right, and these were the type 4 equations we had looked at before. So now we have to move things over the equal sign, so using opposite operations. So we can subtract this 3x to bring the x onto the left-hand side. So 2 minus 3x, that leaves me with a negative 1x plus 6 equals negative 9. Next, I'll subtract 6 both sides. That leaves me with negative 1x is equal to negative 15. All right, we still have that negative to get rid of, so we divide by -1 on both sides, and then the final answer is x is equal to 15. All right, and we were just looking for that, find the number. So our final statement is just that. The number is 15. Okay, so the next type we're looking at are the geometric problems. So these are going to have some sort of like shape, and so you would have to have like a labeled diagram when solving these. So let's look at our first example. So if the two equal sides of an isosceles triangle are each 5 times as long as the base, and the perimeter is 253 meters, find the length of each side. So a couple things we need to review here is, first of all, what is an isosceles triangle and what is perimeter? All right, so I'm just going to pause. All right, so an isosceles triangle is when you have a triangle and 2 sides are the same, and then the perimeter of a shape is when you would add up all the sides. That would be the perimeter. All right, so drawing out our diagram here, so we have an isosceles triangle. 2 sides are the same. So that if the two equal sides of an isosceles triangle are each 5 times as long as the base, so we'll call our base x. And then the 2 equal sides are each 5 times as long as the base. So 5 times x, 5 times x. And we also know that the perimeter, I'll just call it here, perimeter is also something we know. It's 253 meters. All right, so now we have all 3 sides. We just have to add them up and make it equal to 253. So 5x plus 5x plus x is equal to 253. All right, so combine your like terms here, 5x, 5x, and x. That gives me 11x is equal to 253. We'll divide by 11, and that gives me that x is equal to 23. All right, find the length of each side. All right, so we do have to still go back and answer the question. So we can say the sides are, well, the base is going to be 23 meters. So 23 meters. And then the other 2 sides are 5 times x. All right, so 115 meters. So the sides are 23 meters, 115 meters, and 115 meters. All right, next example. 2 angles of a triangle are congruent. The third is twice as large as either of the other 2. What is the measure of each angle? So here, we'll have to need to know what the term congruent means. So we'll just pause here. All right, so now that we know that congruent means the same, we can go ahead and come up with our diagram. So we know we have triangle, and 2 angles are congruent. The third is twice as large as either of the other 2. All right, so we'll call the first 2 x, right? And we know they're the same because congruent means the same. And then the third angle is twice as large as either of the other 2, so just 2x. All right, so we have x, x, and 2x. What is the measure of each angle? So here, before we can start, we need to know what is the sum of all 3 angles in a triangle. So I'll pause here. All right, so now that we know that the sum of all 3 angles in a triangle is always 180, we can go ahead and proceed now and come up with our equation. So 2x plus x plus x is going to give us 180 degrees. All right, so now we can just collect our like terms. 2x plus x plus x, That gives me 4x is equal to 180. Divide by 4. And that gives me x is equal to 45. All right, so what does that mean? That means these two angles, this is 45, this will be 45, and this angle here will be 45 times 2, which will be 90 degrees. All right, so we can put that in our final statement here. The angles are 45 degrees, 45 degrees, and 90 degrees. All right, so that one here is 45. That one is 45. This one here is 2 times 45, which is 90.